Ellen Melman's going to come from the Israel Ministry of Tourism, and she's going to introduce a few people to you tonight, and she's got a few things to say. So Ellen, come forward, and can we welcome her here tonight?
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, and on behalf of the Israel Ministry of Tourism, we want to thank everybody here. We want to thank Pastors Bob and Paul and the community of London Gospel Temple for inviting us to be here this evening. We are delighted to see so many of you to come out on this cool, windy evening, but it's not raining and it's not snowing, so we're happy. At this time, I'd like to introduce a few people that have come with me to be at the evening. So first, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chaim Guten, who is our Commissioner for North and South America from the Israel Ministry of Tourism. We have Mr. Ami Alon, who is the Consul for Tourism for the Israel Ministry of Tourism here in Toronto. We have Mr. Moshe Elazar, who represents the Fatal Hotel chain. We have Mr. Avi Izakau, Manager from International Heritage Tours in Toronto. And of course, our guest speaker, Mr. Shahar Shilo. And now I'd like to introduce Ami to come forward and say a few words.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming tonight. We drove 2.5 hours to get here. I prepared a small speech because my mother told me so. As any other Jewish mother, when I told her that I'm going to talk to people, she told me, you have to finish your presentation with a joke. And I said, why so? And she said, well, Jewish people like jokes. And I said, yes, I'm going to talk in a church. She said, well, we're all from the same DNA. So I'll keep a small joke at the end. Before I begin, I wanted to know how many of you have been to Israel already? 40%. Not enough. Not enough, Paul. When you go to Israel, I know that I'm the Consul for Tourism, so I'm supposed to be biased, but when you go to Israel, this is not only about going to Israel for, I would say, traveling, for leisure or something like that. This is about a life-changing experience that you want to experience. It's something that actually will blow your mind. And this is something that I'm not saying from my own little heart. It's something that actually I hear from everybody that goes there. When you go to Israel, the Bible comes to life. And it sounds like words, but when you walk in the same footsteps of Jesus, when you see where he performed these miracles, and when you touch the stone and you hear the birds in the sky, you open the book, and actually it seems like you can actually use it as a GPS, and you can walk around and you see the things that happen at in the Bible times in the same exact place where you stand, and you understand everything more clearly. Actually, your personal experience with God become greater. I'll cut it to them. I want to hear Shahar. I haven't heard him yet. So I'll have to finish with the word, with the joke. It's not really a joke, but it's something that actually is a bit funny. But every time that you come to church, and from what I hear from your pastor, you come a lot to church. And you have a lot of people coming to church every time, and you pray to God, as you should at church, at home, with your friends, alone, it doesn't matter. But whenever you do it here in Canada, you're actually doing a long-distance call. And that's a problem. I mean, it costs a lot. So when you go to Israel, when you go to Jerusalem, you're doing a local call to God, and you can save a lot of money and efforts. Actually, it will listen. Was that a good joke? Okay. Okay, so now I want to introduce Shahar Shilo, who's a dear friend of mine. He's an historian, a scholar, of course. He's the director of marketing for the city of David, which is in Jerusalem, and is the head of the tour guide course for the Ministry of Tourism, the National Tour Guide Course. So please, warm welcome to Shahar Shilo, came all the way from Israel.
And thank you for the privilege and honor of being here. I will, ask you to forgive my English in advance because it's not my mother tongue eventually. So if I'm making mistakes here and there, please do forgive me in advance. As you said correct, my name is Shahar. I'm coming from Israel, especially to deliver you the message, which I call very much the truth of the Bible through archaeology and history altogether. What we are about to experience, my friend, for the next 10 hours? How many? 9? No, I want to be sure about that. Please, not to get offended. Thanks. So to be on the safe side, what we are about to encounter, my friend, is a voyage, or should I say a spiritual journey, to some of the most amazing revealings and excavations done in the last few years in the land of Israel, which will literally get you to know the Bible from a deeper understanding and fully comprehensive. Here and there, we will be using Hebrew words, which are, I would say, deeper understanding of the Bible, because I will just tell you this small story, okay? During the British Mandate, which was back in Israel until 1948, a Jewish sergeant was driving as a policeman of the British Army. And he was driving along with a local British driver that was recruited in England and driving along with him. They were chatting and talking about Jeremiah. And the Jewish person talks to the British, and they both quote so nicely from the Bible. And they talk about Jeremiah going in before Zedekiah and preaching him about the destruction of Jerusalem and surrendering to the Babylonians, etc., etc. And after 2 hours of discussions, the British guy asks the Jewish guy, who was local, he says to him, "Your English is not that good, but you know the Bible so well. How is it? How can that be?" So the guy tells him, "I'm Jewish." And the English asks him, "Yes, but I never figured that translated the Bible actually to Hebrew." So, I just need you to understand, my friends, okay? Jesus spoke Hebrew, okay? And the Bible was actually very much written in Hebrew. So I'm going to use a few words here and there. If you don't know them, this is what I'm here for exactly, because I want you to learn and understand some of the holistic things from the biblical world. So, we will be starting along with that beautiful picture, and you've got new biblical discoveries in the land of the book, my friends. Biblical lands are way much more than the state of Israel today. You need to understand. We were promised with 3 different categories of borders along the biblical times. The first one in the book of Genesis was promised to Abraham, right? And Abraham, my friends, if you remember, has got the promise from the God himself that the land is going to be spread from the great river of Nile down south all the way up to the great river of Euphrates. Actually, none of the Jewish ancient kings has ever managed to submit such a territory. You should know that. Because what you read in Numbers 34, for instance, or Joshua 15, when the tribes are to be settled in the Holy Land, they will divide the land into 12 tribes. Even Moses from Mount Nebo, standing and overlooking the promised land when the Lord shows him the land which he will never get into, he already knows the tribes' territories. What you're seeing right now are the tribes' territories from both sides of the great holy river of Jordan. Unlike today, which if you speak about the land of Israel, or should I say the state of Israel, you're looking at this part only, my friends. Only the western side here, and not the eastern side, where half a Menashe and Gad and Reuven, these 2.5 tribes, are settled on the eastern side. So when talking with you upon the biblical lens, excuse me in advance, I will be speaking biblical language. I'm not going to speak politics today, which has no value whatsoever for the understanding and the fully comprehensive view of the biblical lens. These are the maps of the Bible. This is what I'm going to address basically during that lecture. Okay? So we have a common background. Now we can actually hit the road. A few biblical stories to get started, because I am among the people of the Lord. I am among people who are, I was promised by the pastor, highly intelligent and highly educated. And therefore, well, a word here. And therefore, I will try and take you through an interesting journey through some of the most amazing findings that are old news. These are not new news, they're old news by now, but they will get you acquainted with the idea of how do we, historians, treat the word of the Bible as we need to compare it to other findings in the field. To be on the safe side, I want to define something with you, my friends. We have got 3 lines of research for us, historians, okay? There's the biblical line, which is theological and biblical, and that's the truth of the Bible as we read it in the Bible itself. It stands for itself as a whole science, but that's the Bible. Then comes document. Documentary, which is out, external to the Bible, can prove the word of the Bible many times, as we have different documents from around the ancient Far East and Middle East, which reflects upon biblical stories. That means I can actually see a text that tells me that certain figures or actions or history or stories from the Bible happened, and this is another source. It's like you've got 2 cameras watching the same field, and every camera shows a different angle of the same story. One can see the actor from his front, the other one sees him from the side or from the back. These are 2 different cameras, you figure out. The third one, which is neither biblical nor historical, is archaeological. Actually, stuff comes out of the ground. When I touch it, when it's first coming out of the ground from a sterile, clean layer, it tells the truth, my friends. This layer was untouched until we have excavated it. And therefore, if I find a lantern, a coin, an arrowhead, anything that speaks for itself and can be dated, and many of the artifacts that we found can be dated not only according to typology. Typology is the style, okay? Crusaders didn't wear what I'm wearing today. Typology goes for styling. If you go to your house right now, you would see stuff that belongs in the 21st century. If I take you to Queen Victoria's time, it would be a different outfit, it would be different dishes in the kitchen, etc., etc. So typology is very strong in archaeology, but we have something else. We have an isotope of carbon, which is called carbon-14. We can actually send it to the lab and get some very much exact dates. So, for instance, if I find wheat seeds or olive seeds or dates or anything which is datable, which is carbonite, which it contains carbon, that's it. I can actually give you a date. So, when all 3 lines are to meet in one specific point, my friend, then you've got a bingo. You see? You've got the theological, biblical line, the historical documentary out of the Bible, and then comes and joins them archaeology, which for us is a great rejoice. In Israel, one can actually meet a few dozens of spots, which all 3 lines merges into one truth. Some of that is going to be introduced right now. So far, so good. What you're watching right now are 2 amazing things that were found in excavations a long time ago, my friend. One of them is about 100 years old. When I'm saying 100 years old, that means when it was found, it was about 100 years ago, by the beginning of the 20th century. That's the one on the left, which is called the Gezer tablet, this one. This one I'm going to refer in a minute, please, okay? On the left side, you see a tablet made of clay, written in ancient Hebraic. And the ancient Hebrew goes like this. These are the months of the year, according to the Jewish traditional months, such as Sivan, Iyar, Tammuz, Av, Elul, ancient biblical names of months. And on the left side, it starts from right to left. Okay, here is the month, and then on the left side it says, which is the agricultural action needs to be taken according to each and every month. You understand that? You're looking at a drill of a primary school that conducted it in the biblical city of Gezer, that was built by King Solomon, and this was found 100 years ago. But it is dated according to the level of stratigraphy where it was found. It is dated to the middle of the 10th century BCE. You're looking at a piece of a primary school drill that was done 2,950 years ago, written in ancient Hebrew. Okay? The city of Gezer, which you should know well, actually appears in the Bible as one of 3 main cities built by King Solomon, and for every one of these artifacts, I have written down for you the original biblical source. See 1 Kings 9:16. This is when Gezer is actually mentioned as one of 3 cities built by King Solomon. Recently, about half a year ago, they just finished up excavating a huge water enterprise. The whole water system of the city of Gezer is actually being prepared, as I speak right now here, is being prepared for grand opening for the next year. So one could actually come and visit Gezer, the ancient biblical Gezer, and see the remains of the biblical kingdom of King Solomon. I hope for that next year if it's going to be open as a national park, yet it's being still maintained. On the right side, that piece of basalt, my friends, is a huge story. It was found in a mound of archaeological city, mound which is Tel, ancient Tel, that is called Tel Divon. Divon, D-I-V-O-N. Divon should ring a bell. It is a city of Sihon, the king of Amorites, stopping the children of Israel and Moses from moving on the king's highway in the Bible, in the book of Numbers, chapter 23 and 24. If you remember, Moses is asking permission from Sihon, the king of Amorites, to pass through his city, and he says, we shall walk in the king's path. We will not move left, we will not move right. We shall not take any of the waters of your wells, and if we will, we shall pay you. And the Amorite king says to him, no. And there goes a fight. So in actual Tel Divon, 1868, comes a French archaeologist, and he actually finds this amazing piece of basalt, my friend. Now this piece of basalt is containing 21 lines written in ancient Moabite language. Who are the Moabites? Do we remember? Genesis 19:31. Genesis 19:31. We learn about the 2 daughters of Lot, the nephew of Abraham, after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, in the cave along with their father, thinking they're actually saving the human race. So what they do is, they get pregnant from their father, and they give birth to 2 sons. One of them is called Ben-Ami, the father of Ammonites. The other one is called Moab, the father of Moabites. So actually, we have brothers to Israel, Moabites and Ammonites, speaking very much the same language. So again, in Moab, Moabite language, 21 lines of ancient, amazing inscription. This one was found about 150 years ago by this French guy. But now you should ask me, and I need some spontaneous question from the crowd if possible. Shahar, what's written there? Would you like to cooperate with me, Pastor? What's written there? Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to tell you, because, spontaneously, it's really important to me right now. I just wanted to tell you guys, it says, to begin with, up there, I'm reading, I am Meisha, king of Moab, son of Chemosh. He starts the whole inscription with describing who he is. Who's the one who's writing it? Stop. Put it aside. Our camera is zooming in for another story. Okay? Leave Moab and the king aside for a second. We're going to 2 Kings 3. Do we remember the story of 2 Kings 3? If I shall start the story, it goes like this. En Meisha, the king of Moab, was submitted to Ahab, king of Israel, throughout his whole life. Ahab dies. His son, which is named Jehoram, goes to reign after him. He's been anointed, and he goes to reign and be king after him. Jehoram is not as strong as his father. And therefore the Moabite king says to him, I'm not going to pay you taxes anymore. If you wish, I dare you. Come, pick up your taxes from here, from Moab. Shall I bring you back for a second to the map? Before, I want to show you something amazing, guys. There's the land of Israel, over there. The ancient kingdom of Israel. Moab is down here. Next to the Dead Sea. Moab is exactly down here. There's a huge problem, because if Israel wants to attack Moab, they should do it through the land which is mutual to them. That's north of the Dead Sea. You're looking at it right now. This is exactly there where Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. This is exactly where Joshua crossed the river of Jordan with the 12 elders carrying a great rock on their shoulder. Remember? So says the Bible. That's the same spot where Elijah, the prophet, takes Elisha and teaches him and crosses him the Jordan with him when he parts the Jordan to two different parts. On that same spot, if the Israelites want to attack Moab right now, they should go straight down south and attack them. That's a problem, because Jehoram is too weak, remember? So what he does is, read the Bible, 2 Kings 3, that's my source. He allies together with the king of Judah named Jehoshaphat. Yehoshaphat in Hebrew. Okay? By the way, Jehoshaphat, for your knowledge, my friends, read up Revelations, read up the book of Joel, read up the book of Zacharias. Jehoshaphat is what's going to happen basically on doomsday, on last day upon earth before the great war, because the Lord himself will come down upon earth and judge each and every one of us in this room. Yahweh, Jeho, right? Yahweh, the Lord, Shaphat, judge. So Yehoshaphat, actually the name of the king, is what's going to happen on the last day. Basically, what we call revival of the dead. Anyway, if he needs to go down here, so Jehoram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, according to the Bible, allies together with the king of Judah, because he wants to come down from the south. He wants to attack Moab from beneath, from the south, unexpectedly. They make an ally together with the king of Edom, the Edomite king, which is even more down south on my map, down here. And all three of them together are going to actually fight Moab. So says the book of the Bible. Read 2 Kings 3. Now may I go back to my inscription, which is the one that I just showed you, my friends. We put it aside, remember? Now we bring it back, zooming in, and I'm going to the 5th line from the bottom, which is right there. Okay, there's 21 lines here. That's the 5th line. Right over there, it says, not only it says, I am Mesha, king of Moab, remember from 2 Kings 3? It says, I have succeeded the war against Jehoram, son of Ahab, king of Israel. You do understand the puzzle that we historians have to go through? We have the biblical source. We have the documentary, which is a document outside the Bible. All we've got to do is cut, paste, put them one on top of the other and say, wow. You do understand that when you read your Bible, my friends, you always say, oh, I knew that. Fine, you know it because it's biblical. But right now, your understanding is much more comprehensive because you see that the truth of the Bible can actually be proven by archaeological things. So, I rest my case here. That's the first slide out of 250, something like this. We need to go furthermore. Okay? For many, many years, for some reason, some archaeologists claim that King David is a myth. By the way, this was basically to disable the sub-preliminary assumption that not only King David was the grandfather of Jesus, but if he did not exist in Bethlehem, therefore the whole myth of Bethlehem and Jesus did not exist as well. So many archaeologists from different places, which I will name none of them right now, claim that King David is a myth. And they said that the Jews have invented him as a story when they wanted to go back to the country to have ancient roots in the country. My friends, you're looking at a piece of clay coming from Tel Dan. Where is Tel Dan? If I just go back 1 second to my map so you can actually see it. There's the tribe of Dan, right there. Tel Dan is actually a biblical ancient mound in the north side of the country. There are remains of an ancient great temple that was built by Jeroboam. Jeroboam, the great king of Israel, the divider of the kingdom, if you remember, when in his time the kingdom split into Judah and Israel. Okay, so Jeroboam actually built a temple over there. And in that place, they found this amazing inscription, Aramaic, which was done by an Aramite king. The Aramite king is named Achaz, and Chazael. Chazael, son of Achaz. And he's actually commemorating his victory over someone. And that someone, my friends, is highlighted right there for you. See that highlighted? It says over there, Beit David. In Hebrew, Leveit David, to the house of David. What's written down there, my friends, is, I am Chazael, son of Achaz, have succeeded a king from the house of David. If there was no David, there could be no house of David. You do understand that, right? The dynasty of David only was established after his reign when Solomon took the throne. So only when David died, only then can you actually establish a dynasty called after your father, which will be giving his name to the establishment of the whole kingdom. You're actually looking at the first proof ever. 15 years ago it was found in Tel Dan. Actually, first proof ever to prove that the house of David actually existed in the times of the Bible. This is approximately 80 years after King David dies. Beginning of the 9th century BCE. Beginning of the 9th century BCE. Over there, what you see is an amazing piece of scroll made of silver. It's about 2.5 centimeters, my friend, 1 inch. That's the size. Ancient Hebraic tells you that this is no less than the earliest ever found text from the Bible coming out of the ground from a dig. Actually, an excavation. Now again, Pastor, I need your help. Shahar, where is it? Thank you very much. You're so cooperative today. Thanks. Guys, we need that. You need to understand why. This was found in a Jewish tomb in Jerusalem, 2,600 years old. How come 2,600 years old is so important? Because the whole book of Jeremiah, my friends, talking about the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar, is exactly 586 BCE. 586 BCE plus today brings you exactly 2,600 years ago. Exactly. Okay, when the year 2014 will come upon us, we will actually have exactly 2,600 years. That happened in the time of Jeremiah. That Jewish skeleton, which carried that upon his chest, actually carried a blessing of the high priest that blesses every person in that ancient times. When we enlist our children to the army, when my child will be enlisting the IDF, the army, I am to put my hand upon his head and bless him with a great blessing given to me by the Lord. Ask me, Shahar, how come it was given to you by the Lord? And I'm telling you, Numbers 6. Read Numbers 6. The Lord has told Aaron and Moses, specifically Aaron and Moses, leading the children of Israel, "Thou shalt bless the children of Israel with that blessing," specifically. And you read it. Look at this, guys. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. You see? And be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Shalom. Hashem iten lecha shalom. The Lord will give you peace. That amazing blessing is biblical. But can you imagine us digging it from a Jewish tomb on a skeleton, which on that specific skeleton comes this piece of silver, which was supposed to be carried with him for the next world, for the afterlife, for the resurrection of the dead. And this is actually from the exact year that Jerusalem was occupied by the Babylonians, and he found his death through that attack. What I brought with me here today, and that's right here on my bag, you will be invited later on to see it if you wish, my friends. I got a permission from the Ministry of Antiquities to bring something with me here today, tonight. And that is something we have found in that tomb. Not only one, but we found that in that tomb, my friends. This is an actual biblical Babylonian arrowhead that I'm holding right now in my hand. Okay, that's an arrowhead. It's made of bronze. It is Babylonian style, and it's exactly dated to 2,600 years ago. 2,600 years ago, that means we have found 2 of these, by the way. 2 of these in that tomb, right there. And that tomb carried skeletons of people that were casualties during that attack. This was within one of them, because when the body decomposes, this comes out. That's an actual Babylonian arrowhead. We found these, by the way, in a huge sifting project that we conduct from the Temple Mount next to the Mount Scopus, my friends. Can you imagine yourself coming to the land of Israel, actually working with your hands, playing 2 hours Indiana Jones, and finding stuff like this? This was found by a 15-year-old baby. Child, 15 years old, found that. He never knew what it is at the time. But this is actual Babylonian arrowhead, unique for the Babylonian archery. Only they are the ones that had it back then. Okay, we'll put it aside. It will serve us afterwards. Some more stuff that I wanted to show you is the amazing inscription of Siloam. Again, this is old news. It's yet not new news. I brought with me a lot of new news right now. But this is actual old. This was conducted by the workers carving the great tunnel, which we call today the Hezekiah's Tunnel. Ask me where, and I will tell you. Thank you very much. They're all very cooperative tonight. Thank you. I was asking myself, it's okay, but you can, hop in anytime on the wagon you wish. That amazing inscription, my friends, was conducted by the workers of Hezekiah. Read the Bible in Chronicles, and you hear. And the deeds of Hezekiah, as he conducted the tunnel and the walls of Jerusalem at that time. This was found in a tunnel. You can actually walk today in the waters of the Gihon biblical spring on the way to the pool of Siloam. This was found 8 meters from the pool of Siloam in that amazing tunnel, dated to the time of King Hezekiah. King Hezekiah, let me remind you this, lived in 705 BCE. 705 BCE, that's the time of the great revolt of the Jews against the Assyrians, not Babylonians, Assyrians, which Isaiah the prophet basically testifies upon that great revolt. Because in his time, he said to Hezekiah, "Fear not, as the Lord is with you." And he's standing on the walls of Jerusalem, prophesying the Assyrians would withdraw, which is exactly what happened eventually. You're actually looking at the proof of the existence of King Hezekiah doing that amazing enterprise of the water system of the pool of Siloam. My friends, what you're looking at right now is the biblical city of David. That's a great riddle because most people coming to Jerusalem expect the city of David to be within the walls of the old city. Jerusalem is unique. It's not, the old city does not hold the old city within it. You need to remember that. What happened is that the Gihon spring is in a lower valley. The ancient city had to be attached to the lower spring because in Jerusalem, it's not Canada, my friends. If you don't have a spring or you cannot collect other waters, you'll die out of thirsty very soon because it's on the edge of the desert. So actually, unlike European cities, which are all on the top of the hill, using annual rainfall that falls throughout the year of huge amounts, they have over 1,000 millimeters. In Jerusalem, we have less. What we do is, if you are to look for ancient cities in Jerusalem area, Judean desert, or Judean hills at all, it wouldn't be on top of mountains because you need to get closer to the water. The water never appears on the mountain, always in the valley, down. So actually what you're looking at is the ancient biblical city of David, which is outside of the walls. This is a picture taken in 1936. This area, my friends, here is empty. Look at this triangle between that angle here and that angle here. This is the Temple Mount. Get the orientation, please, because this picture will change in a minute to today. Remember that, Temple Mount, Dome of the Rock, the great Mosque of Al-Aqsa here, and look at today. That's Jerusalem today, my friend, and I just died for you right now, the actual biblical city of David. This is how large it is. It is 46 dunams by size. Speaking of acres, that would be around 11 acres. Okay? Now, I'm always saying this. Guys, Coca-Cola and Nike together are less stronger brands than Jerusalem. Okay? Jerusalem is a stronger brand than Coca-Cola and Nike altogether. Even Apple is not as strong as Jerusalem. You need to understand, one can talk about Jerusalem. When I say to people around the world, and I'm lecturing all around the world, I come from Jerusalem, they need not asking me, Shahar, where is it exactly? They don't need to ask. It's very clear. It's very simple. What you're looking at right now is, why am I explaining you this? Because Jerusalem, which you know today, has got nothing to do with ancient Jerusalem. Ancient Jerusalem, my friends, is as small as a private house in Texas today. 11 acres. That's it. You're looking at it right now. This is it. This is the biblical city of David, which will arouse the most amazing archaeological discoveries to be presented to you right now. Okay? Some of the stuff that I'm going to show you right now was actually found in there in the last few years. Such as these, for instance. These are actual impressions of new, amazing proofs of the biblical word of Jeremiah brought out of the soil in the city of David in the last few years. You can ask me, Shahar, where does it appear? And I'll tell you, read the story of Jeremiah between 34 to 38. These are the 5 chapters dealing with the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians under the reign of Zedekiah. Zedekiah is the last king, he's 22nd king. 22nd king by number. From David to Zedekiah, 22nd kings have ruled. He's the last one. Because after him, Jerusalem would be gone. Until it will be re-established. In the second temple period, Jerusalem is gone and the Jews are going to be sent to exile. That's 586 BCE. But before that happens, if I may go back to the story a second, our camera will zoom out for a moment and get back to the weeks before the destruction. And what happens is an amazing story. Guys, it's a really tragedy that happens in front of our eyes. 4 ministers are gathered around Zedekiah. They're called the Cabinet of War. Cabinet of War is made out of 4 ministers. Okay? The names are as follows. Listen to the names. It's Jewish, ancient, Hebraic, biblical names. I know, but I'm going to translate them to you easily. Okay? It is going like this, guys. Here is Gedaliyahu. See, Gedaliyahu. There's go Yehochal. These are private names. This one is Gemariyahu. The 4th one has got nothing to do with the 4. It's another impression. It doesn't go on this specific story. But the 4th one is called, by the way, Pashhur, son of Mataniyahu. They're all Yahus. If you just pay attention, Yahweh is the Lord. Right? Y-A-H, Yah, is the Hebrew word for the Lord. That's the Hebrew ancient name of the biblical Lord. And the Lord Yahweh is a theophoric component in each and every Jewish name in the ancient times. You understand that? Every Jewish in the ancient times had Yahweh within his name. But they're all Yahoo. So the next time you go on your browser in the internet, my friends, yahoo.com, that's ours. All time. Look at this. 2,600 years old Yahoo. And they're here. Impressions. Now, the names of the 4 ministers is something unique. You need to remember that. The cabinet of war is gathered around Zedekiah and actually tells him what to do. Zedekiah is horrified, if I may say, is terrified, because the Babylonians are the strongest army in the world and they're actually besieging Jerusalem. And he's asking his 4 ministers, what should I do? And they tell him, bring on the prophet. Jeremiah would save us. He's got a direct line, the red phone, straight to God. He can talk to God and he will eliminate the Babylonians. So they say, okay, let's bring on Jeremiah. Jeremiah is being brought to the courtyard of the king's palace. And the prophecy that he gives, my friends, oh boy, you want to be deaf. You don't want to hear that. He's prophesying not only the destruction of Jerusalem and being slaughtered by the sword of the Babylonians. Actually, he tells Zedekiah, you will be watching your sons and daughters slaughtered in front of your eyes. You will be blinded by the king of the Babylonians. Only then you would be killed by him. That means you won't go easy. So Zedekiah is completely frightened right now. He tells to Yehochal, son of Shlemiyahu, read the Bible. Go back tonight, do me a favor, read your Bible. Jeremiah 36, 37. He tells to Yehochal, son of Shlemiyahu, take this man away. And Yehochal grabs Jeremiah by the arm and throws him to the pit, to the dungeon. Jeremiah is being thrown to the pit. Can you actually understand how amazed we were when in 2005, in the ashes of a great public building in the city of David, ashes about this thick, 1 meter thick. In the ashes, we come out with this impression. This is a bulla. In Greek, bulla. Bulla, B-U-L-A, stands for a stamp. When you take something and stamp it, like an envelope with a letter, put a stamp, it's called in ancient Greek, bulla. The bulla here contains a Hebrew biblical name of a high-ranked minister in the office of Zedekiah. This struck us back then, amazed. And then, 2008, last day of the year, we come out with that one, Gedaliyahu, son of Pashhur. This one. Gedaliyahu ben Pashhur, it says. To Gedaliyahu, son of Pashhur. And this actually carries out a name from the Bible, which we are very much familiar with. It's another minister, the second one, high-ranked minister, in the office of Zedekiah. My friends, if I may compare it, what you see here is a regards from the grave. Okay? 2,600 years old, hello from the grave. This guy tells you, I'm here. I used to live here in this spot. You're actually walking in the footsteps of my prophets and kings that once used to walk the city of David. But it's more than that. If you can amaze, just imagine yourself, someone digging out the Ottawa building of the Prime Minister and actually find an impression carrying out the name of your former Prime Minister in 2,500 years from now. That's actually what you're looking at. The actual story of the Bible comes alive with these names. This guy down there, Gemariyahu, son of Shaphan, is actually no less than the king's author himself. That's the guy who actually writes the notes during Prime Minister's office meetings and later on being signed by the king and distributes them for the ministers to do their job, to carry out the orders. This is like the Secretary of the Government. Secretary of the Government, this is the guy, the king's author. You're actually looking at living proofs for the existence of the whole story, the book of Jeremiah, in the falling of Jerusalem in 586 BCE. This is not enough for us because just a year ago, we found this amazing bulla, guys. This beautiful thing was found down here in the Canaanite pool. I don't have enough time to talk about the Canaanite pool, but if I just may say this. When was Jerusalem first mentioned ever in the Bible? May I ask you this? I don't recall my Bible that well. Please do help me, my friends. I don't remember my Bible so well. Jerusalem, when was it first mentioned in the Bible? Let me give you a hint. Over 700 times Jerusalem appears in the Bible. Over 700 times. But the first one is, it is called the city of Shalem. Shalem or Salem. You know it from your Bible in English as Salem. S-A-L-E-M. Salem. But actually it should be pronounced Shalem. Right? That's Genesis 14:18. Again, so you can write a note. Genesis 14:18. How come? Because Melchizedek is hosting Abraham in his city, which is called Shalem. Do you know what Shalem stands for in Hebrew? Complete. Whole. Something which is whole, complete, fully comprehensive. That's Shalem, which is the root for the word that I used, shalom, friends. When I say shalom, you all know shalom from Hebrew. One cannot be in peace with himself. He is not complete and whole and fully comprehend with himself. So shalom and shalem derives from the same word. And this is actually the Canaanite pool of the city of Melchizedek, which one can actually visit, as 1 month ago only did we open a new site in the city of David to go to the biblical Canaanite fortress of Melchizedek, the king of Shalem. So right in there, from another time, we found this amazing bulla. First ever to acknowledge the existence of Bethlehem in the biblical times. It says on that bulla, on the 7th year to Bethlehem. You need to know that for many years Bethlehem was challenged as a myth, according to these archaeologists from that field that wanted to say that Israel has no right to exist as it has no past in Israel. So they said, that's a whole plot done by the Christians and the Jews that Jesus and David are deriving from the same city to take over Palestine and the land of Israel. There has been no Bethlehem in the past. My friends, this was proven wrong. This is an 8th century impression, 8th century BCE impression, carrying out the name of the biblical city where King David was born, Bethlehem. And this came out from the city of David a year ago, exactly. A whole course in university to my students is being delivered upon that slide. I can't do it right now, I'm sorry. But you need to comprehend and understand what it is. That's the first proof ever for the existence of Bethlehem, which later on I'm going to prove to you that the millennium that describes, basically separates from David to Jesus, has a lot to do with that amazing impression. Okay? I'm going to talk to you in a minute about from David to Jesus, and you'll fully comprehend what I mean among that course, because this bulla is highly important for us to understand that Bethlehem existed. I'm going to take you right now to an amazing understanding, but again, some questions, my friends, as I don't remember the Bible as well as you do right now. Please help me out. How many miracles are being conducted by Jesus in the Galilee? Tricky question, I know. Let's start with Cana, right? Water turns to wine by the special request done by his mother, St. Mary, right? And then we can continue on and on. I'm not going to count right now each and every one with you, but I did. Take my word, it's over 30. And according to some commentators, later on, it's over 55. Depends who's counting and which books are we to read exactly among which different translation. And some of his disciples are carrying out things for him, but it's over 30 miracles. Okay, let's remember that aside and ask you this. How many miracles have Jesus conducted in Jerusalem, my friends? Fear not. I'm not going to eat anyone. Please do try and help me. How many? Why 2? Which ones? Help me out. 2, that's very much correct, my friends. Chaim is completely right. Only 2 miracles have been conducted in Jerusalem by Jesus. But how come? Why is Jerusalem being demeaned by Jesus? I mean, like Jerusalem, the place of crucifixion and resurrection and the ascension, the Holy Week, Palm Sunday, all the You know, everything that happens in the New Testament is basically focusing on the Holy Week in Jerusalem. That would be, I would expect, the most impressive and, important, at least. How come the Galilee wins over 30 different miracles through his ministry in Jerusalem, which was visited by Jesus every year since he was a boy doing pilgrimage? We learn that from the Holy Scriptures. That's for sure. The Gospels are very much clear about that. How come only 2? I want to show you an idea here that I present to you as from David to Jesus, and you need to go with me slowly. If I'm not clear, ask me to go back. No problem. Okay? The 2 miracles are as follows. Read up John 5, 1 to 13, please. John 5, 1 to 13. And you'll be learning about the miracle of the healing of the disabled in the pools of Bethesda. So far, so good, correct? Thank you. Do amend me every now and then. I'm embarrassed otherwise. I need that. I told you, it's my first time ever in front of a crowd. I need that help every now and then, The second time Jesus will conduct a miracle in Jerusalem is right in front of your eyes right now, which is going to be John 9, 7 and 8. John 9. And that's going to be the miracle of the healing of the blind man in the pools of Siloam. Now I dare you, my friends, think well, because I'm going to present to you an idea that comes from 2 Samuel 5. Okay, so far we have learned that 2 miracles have been performed by Jesus taking place in Jerusalem. Only 2. If you read well your Bible, you'll see that no other miracle done by Jesus was in the borders of Jerusalem. Even taking the ear of the soldier and fixing it in Gethsemane, next to the place where he was betrayed by Judah of Karath, that's not Jerusalem. That is the slopes of the Mount of Olives. So 2 miracles will take place in Jerusalem. Now go to 2 Samuel 5, please. 2 Samuel 5. The Jebusite king is being attacked by King David. King David, with 600 infantry people, is going to take over Jerusalem as asked by the 12 tribes of Israel when King Saul, died. King Saul died in the Gilboa. Young King David is being asked by the 12 tribes, please come and be our king. And he is going to choose a capital which is going to be not in any of the other tribes' territory. Jerusalem until then was Jebusite. It was not taken neither by Joshua nor by the judges in the early times of settlement. Even though Joshua conquered it, he never settled it. Okay, Jerusalem was Jebusite. So the Jebusite king stands on the wall and he mocks young King David and he tells him this. Again, I quote for you, my friends, as this is a highly educated crowd. Thou shalt not come here until you remove the blind and the lame, says the Jebusite king to David. What does David do? What does he do? It says, by the way, the next verse is, and David hated the blind and the lame. So it says, David tells to his people, those who want to conquer the Jebusite city shall touch the gutter. The gutter by the meaning of pipe. Gutter is the ancient word. The Hebrew word, by the way, is tzinor. It appears only twice in the whole Bible, my friends. One is in 2 Samuel 5. The second time it will appear is in Psalms 51. The book of Psalms 51, it used the word tzinor. I don't have enough time to preach to you about the word tzinor, but our early commentators have referred to it in a very interesting way in the Mishnah, in the ancient Mishnah, the early commentators. You should just know this, my friends, that tzinor is where the troops of David has penetrated the city from underneath because they couldn't storm the walls, because Jerusalem was fortified. And David doesn't storm the walls, he goes through the tzinor, the gutter. Now, again, thou shalt not come here until you remove the blind and the lame. Rings a bell. 1,000 years afterwards comes a descendant of King David from Bethlehem, comes to Jerusalem, and he still needs to address the same problem, only this time not with the power of a soldier. David was a fighter, David was a general, he was a shepherd, he was a musician, he was a talented, brave young man. Jesus is all about mercy and grace. Jesus is a healer. Jesus needs to come to Jerusalem and fix the great problem that the Jebusite king left as a curse upon David. And he needs to address the blind and the lame. John 5, the lame. John 9, the blind. My friends, I'm asking you the next time you can, board an airplane, come to the pool of Siloam. You'll never read your Bible again the same way. Because if you open it up in the pool of Siloam, which you actually see right now, we have uncovered the biblical pool of Siloam from Jesus' times 5 years ago. 5 years ago only did we find that beautiful spot. This is during the excavations. This is what you see right now today when you walk. These are the ancient steps of the pool of Siloam. This is, of course, an imitation, a replica that we have drew for you to understand how it looked in the ancient times. It is a huge pool, 3 dunams by size, 3/4 of an acre. Can you figure out? This must have been the most beautiful country club ever built in Jerusalem. Ever. In the times of Jesus, it served as a huge bathing pool and meeting point for all the pilgrims. All the pilgrims must have gone through the pool of Siloam on their way to Temple Mount. So says the ancient sources, the ancient scriptures of the Jews. So Jesus actually, when he cures the blind, sends him, he tells him, my son, go down to the pool of Siloam after putting some soil and spit on the soil with his hand over his brow. He sends him to the pool of Siloam. I'm showing you this because I want you to see the next beautiful picture, my friends. And this is a new tour we have just recently opened. And this is called Follow Jesus, on the footsteps of Jesus through the pool of Siloam all the way up to the Temple Mount. Follow the pilgrimage that he himself has conducted as a young boy and an elder and a juvenile, and later on as a grown-up man, as an adult. This actually shows you, I want to show you this, my friends, from the pool of Siloam all the way like this, all the way up to the Temple Mount. One can walk today for 700 meters long walk in ancient Jerusalem from Jesus' time. You need to understand, this is not a cliche. It's not walking upon Byzantine pavement that was conducted 500 years after Jesus. These are the original pavement he walked. Literally. Why? Because King Herod built it in his time. Actually, when he walked Jerusalem, these are the pavement you'll encounter when you come and walk it. Again, I want to dare you with your Bible, my friends, because this was actually open to the public 2 years ago. This side here. This is right there. Right there by the pool of Siloam. This is the entrance to these beautiful stairs walking underground all the way to the Temple Mount. Do you ever read Psalms in this church? Do you, Pastor? Thank you. I didn't think you'd answer otherwise. Now, I want to ask you this. How many chapters in the book of Psalms would start with the words, the Song of Ascents? Remember? The Song of Ascents is quite a common phrase when reading Psalms, because no less than 15 chapters of the book of Psalms would start in the Song of Ascents. Now, the Song of Ascents are not only a spiritual ascent towards heaven. My friends, these were actual steps walked by the Levites. Read the Bible. Read the Mishnah, the Jewish commentators of the early times. Read it. It's there. It's all there. The Song of Ascents, my friends, was the song that the Levites used to sing as they were escorting the high priest through the walking from the pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount, when the high priest was carrying in his hands a golden bowl, fill it with water from the pool of Siloam, and pouring it over the altar of the temple. And the songs that the Levites were singing, playing the trumpets and the drums and the great instruments of the ancient times, they were singing the Song of Ascents. Can you imagine that these ascents are today open to the public and you can actually walk them? Do you know what reading Psalms after walking this, or should I say, walking this as you walk up and reading Psalms? This is an actual ascent. Ascents are stairs. These are the stairs. You're looking at them right now. One can actually fit and walk into these stairs all the way up to the Temple Mount today, partly on these stairs and partly in a tunnel, in a great tunnel that is conducted around 8 to 7 meters below Jerusalem of today. So you actually have Jerusalem of today's and Jerusalem of Jesus' times, 7 to 8 meters underneath, which you can walk it all the way to the Temple Mount in these beautiful places. Another thing I brought with me is something we found over these stairs, my friend. What I'm holding here in my hand, later on you're about to come and see, it's going to be here presented on the table. This is an actual replica of an amazing half a shekel coin that we have uncovered in those ascents. Half a shekel coin. Rings a bell? What is half a shekel coin? That's the annual tax paid by every Jewish family to the maintenance of the house of the Lord in the time of Jesus. This is an actual coin that was carried in Jesus' pocket when he went to the temple with his parents every year. That's an actual thing one can see in Jerusalem today in many places. We've actually found a few of these, by the way, because at that time they were not quite rare. Again, there's a whole lesson in university just upon this coin. I don't have enough time right now, but I'm really asking you to understand. You're looking at a replica of something that we have found in the Footsteps of Jesus tour, in the Pool of Siloam tour, and this is a part of what you can actually experience. By the way, two of these were found in the sifting project of the Temple Mount, separately. Again, for those who want to understand the connection in between the Jewish people in the ancient times and the Temple Mount, again, I'm telling you, we're talking about things that were found in the Temple Mount. So one of these half a shekel coins were found back then. Today, the Israeli currency is shekel. We use shekels today. You use dollars, we use shekels. The biblical word still exists in our currency, in our money today. Some beautiful pictures for you from that ascent, which was recently, I told you, uncovered, revealed, and open to the public. Now we can actually walk the whole thing through, all the way to the southern steps of the temple, which is right there. These are the stairs to the temple. This is a replica of the arch that once used to stand above this entrance to the Temple Mount. These are the remains of it right now. What else have I arranged for you, my friends? This beautiful golden bell, which you see, that's the one I'm referring to right now, is about this size. Okay? Read the Bible. What are they serving for? Or should you ask before that, Shahar, okay, interesting, where was it found? It's a new discovery that was found in a mikveh, ritual bath, under Temple Mount, on that same track, which I'm still referring to. The path we're following Jesus from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount, but this one was actually found, I would say, 2 meters from the Temple Mount. On the way, next to the Temple Mount itself, under the walls of the Temple Mount, which we call the Western Wall. The Western Wall. So, I'm referring to this beautiful thing, which is a small, beautiful, pure gold bell, this size. When it came out of the ground, it rang as if it rings today, and it rang 2,000 years ago. Same thing. Now, what the Bible says about this interesting bell is this. You can see that it has a loop here, that it can be attached to a piece of cloth. It was basically tied, sewed to a cloth. The high priest's coat was covered with 72 golden bells and pomegranates. Bells and pomegranates. So it says in the Mishnah. And the Bible says that the high priest wore a coat with bells. This is 2,000 years old actual golden bell that once used to be a part of that coat. You are very much welcome to come and search with us for the other 71. Okay? But this one is amazing, my friend. We have taken that to an X-ray. Okay? My friend, Eli Shukrun, the chief archaeologist of the city of David, took it to his dentist. He wanted to make an X-ray. So his dentist put it on an X-ray. And actually, there's a small tongue inside, which moves and makes the noise, as a bell should have. But when we looked at it, we were overwhelmed. The shape of the inner small tongue is a pomegranate. This looks like so actually, when the Bible speaks about bells and pomegranates, these are not two different things. It's two in one, combined in one. This actual bell, my friends, is 2,000 years old, exactly from the time of Jesus, from the temple, from a coat, such as worn by the high priest. I'm not referring to all the other things because it's going to be too long. I want to show you something amazing. Look at this menorah, this Jewish menorah, which is very famous. I put that slide for you here because I wanted you to remember what the menorah is. This is from the Titus Gate, Great Titus Gate in Rome. Okay? You're actually looking at the Titus Gate in Rome right now, which shows that all the tools of the temple were taken to Rome in this great, caravan, taking all the tools of the temple and, I would say, conducted basically on the Great Titus Gate to commemorate Titus and to demean Jerusalem. This is it. What you're looking at right now, my friends, is a 2 month and a half years old. 2 month and a half. 2 months and a half. We found that next to the Temple Mount in the southern stairs. Dr. Elat Mazar has conducted an amazing excavation. 2.5 months ago, she found that beautiful medallion. That's the size, guys. That's the size of the medallion, okay? I couldn't bring it with me. It's behind armored glass right now, within the cellars of the Authority of Antiquities. It carries, look at this. It carries the menorah. It carries here a Torah scroll. That's a scroll of Torah, parchment. And this one is the shofar, the great shofar, the horn, which we use for holidays. You're looking at a symbol for the Jewish connection to the Temple Mount from the ancient times, from the Byzantine period. It actually was found, again, she published a whole book about it recently, 2 months ago. I just wanted to show it to you as a new discovery because I don't have enough time to talk it over, but you should know. Things are being excavated as we speak here right now because there are at least 5 delegations working around the city of David as we speak today right now here. A word about the gospel trail. If you are to come to Israel, my friends, you can actually walk following the ministry of Jesus in your footsteps and walking with Him as you are reading the Gospels. This is something you do for people of that kind, my friends. You don't walk in churches. You walk in the fields of His ministry. 65 stations from the Holy Scriptures will be revealed to you along that path. One can actually walk that path for 4 full days. It's a 4 days hike because you start in Nazareth and you are to finish in Capernaum, here, Capernaum. This would actually take you about 4 days hike. It's about 42 miles long, should I say 65 kilometers. But if one wants to just walk for a while, then the bus can stop next to it. Then there's an hour or 2 of hike with your congregation, flock, whatever. And you can actually read the Gospels in the same place where it served, where it was actually, conducted and done. And this is an amazing hike to be conducted today in Israel in His footsteps. Few more things because how is my timing, my friends? 2 hours more? No, I just need to know because otherwise it really is going to get too long, friends. Again, I want to show you something amazing, recently found and excavated. You wouldn't believe it, friends, but this is actually taken from Chicago University. The Chicago University is the one excavating right now Bethsaida. Bethsaida, in Hebrew, what you call in your Bible, Bethsaida. Bethsaida, if you don't separate it to different words, would be the place where Jesus has cursed the city of Bethsaida. Do you remember that? Why does He curse Bethsaida? Among 4 other cities around the Sea of Galilee, 4 cities are being cursed by Jesus. 4 villages, should I say, towns. Why? He tells them, should I remind you? If the people of Sodom and Gomorrah would have seen the miracles that has conducted among you, the people of Bethsaida, He says, they should have repent by now. They would have been all believing in the Lord and repent. So Bethsaida was cursed. Again, I want to show you the power of archaeology. Bethsaida today, my friends, being excavated by the Chicago University for the past 10 years, has proven to be 2 different sites altogether, which is amazing. One of them is Bethsaida of Jesus' times. These are the pavements and the sidewalks and the streets that He wandered. By the way, this is where He gathered 2 of His most loyal disciples. 2 of the most loyal disciples were carried from Bethsaida and joining Him. In a minute, I will interpret with you the word, and you'll see what Bethsaida is. But on that specific site which you're looking at, that's the one here, friends. This gate is not from Jesus' times. It is from David's time. There's 1,000 years in between David and Jesus. Again, how do we bond them together? With your amazing journey following the Bible, my friends, from Jesus to David or from David to Jesus, I would like to show you this. Let's go back to David for a second. David got married to 7 wives through his time. By the way, he was not a Mormon. Okay? He was actually entitled to. In this time, it was okay. So David got married with 7 wives. One of them was called Ma'acha, the daughter of the king of Geshur. Ma'acha was the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. Geshur was a great, great kingdom north of the Sea of Galilee on the slopes of the Golan Heights. So actually, the grandfather of Absalom, the King David's son, that was brought by his daughter, Ma'acha. Ma'acha was the mother of Absalom. His grandfather was the king of Geshur. When Absalom rebels King David, where does he escape to? Do you remember? Read the Bible. 2 Samuel 12, 13, 14. Read it. Absalom is rebelling against King David. That revolt would cost him. He runs away, he escapes, and he goes to his grandfather, which defends him at that time, because King David cannot pursue him all the way to Geshur. My friends, all of a sudden we learned and understand that the most preserved biblical city to be found today in the Israeli borders of the state of Israel today is actually the biblical kingdom of Geshur, which is what you're looking at right now. These are the remains of that entrance. So you can see in one walk next to the Sea of Galilee today, you can actually visit Absalom, the son of King David, and Jesus, which are, I would say, 500 meters apart from one another on the same biblical site. You've got David and Absalom and the king of Geshur, and you've got the pavements of Bethsaida. Now, again, Pastor, I need your cooperation. Ask me, what is Bethsaida in Hebrew? These are 2 words. Thank you very much. 2 words. 2 words. Beit, house of. The house of something is called in Hebrew Beit. Saida is Saida. Saida in Aramaic, fisherman. What does Jesus tell to his disciples next to the Sea of Galilee? You are fishermen. I will teach you how to fish men, not fish. Okay? What happens in Bethsaida? This is actually the place where, once again, you can open up the gospel, read and understand and fully comprehend, because those some words that we're teaching here today in Hebrew will fulfill you with understanding and better comprehension of Jesus as he talks to his disciples. I'm sorry, my friends, he never spoke English to them. He never did. I'm sorry. He spoke Hebrew. Therefore, if you don't know the language, you miss some of the most interesting stories that are to be carried out next to the Sea of Galilee. I won't even refer. There's much more to it. Some beautiful pictures of parts of his ministry, such as Nazareth, Mount Tabor of Transfiguration, and Caesarea Philippi, if I should remind you, where Peter accepts the keys of heaven. That's another new excavation that was opened to the public recently in the ancient city of Panias. Panias, that's Caesarea Philippi. I am almost about to resume, my friends. I want to show you this amazing thing. I remember that we have a very good Greek student here in the crowd, right? I would, without embarrassing anything, I would like to refer to you, young lady, and ask you, what's the word in Greek for a fish? Would you please be so kind to explain for this holy crowd what it means in ancient Greek? Ichtheos, which is? Yes, and if you take the initials for the letters one by one, it stands for? King of the world. Thank you. Friends, early Christian communities were persecuted if they have revealed their Christianity. Because when the Roman Empire is still standing, Christianity was completely forbidden. Remember that? If you were a Christian, you were basically prosecuted. And you were pursued. So what did they do to communicate in between early communities in the land of Israel? They talked through symbols. And the symbol was a fish. A fish, my friend, not only the fishermen and the Sea of Galilee and the feeding of the 5,000 and making the sea calm and all those beautiful miracles which we know from the Gospels, these are only parts. But the fish itself represented something else. Everybody knew Greek. And Greek fish is ichthos, which is Jesus Christ, Son of God, King of the world. These are the ancient initials that are embedded in the word fish in Greek. And therefore, you see fish in every ancient mosaics. We see them on coffins. We see them in the art. We see them among the scriptures. We see them in the art. Every Christian ancient community communicated with one another through fish. But this is not why I put this picture over here, because the fish is something you knew before I came here. It's common knowledge. What I wanted you to see is that this mosaic from the year 280 AD, that is 45 years prior to the acceptance of Christianity by great Constantine, the Caesar of Roman Empire, and declare it as a Roman state religion. Again, I would say this so you can fully comprehend. This mosaic belongs in a rich man's house next to Megiddo, Armageddon, which I'll talk about Revelations in a second, okay? Next to Megiddo, a rich man's house, 280 AD, 45 years before the acceptance of Christianity as a Roman religion, okay, as the whole empire religion. And there's an inscription, my friends. You don't see it because it's right there. There's a small inscription right there. Do you know what it says? That's the earliest acknowledgement, historically and archaeologically, that I can show you today in Israel, that actually says this. On the house floor, in the inscription, it says, LeYeshua HaMashiach, to Jesus Christ. Therefore, we say, wait. The acknowledgement of Jesus as Christ only happened with Constantine the Great. You understand that? Only when Constantine allowed people to be Christians, then did they start accept Jesus as Christ. Before that, these were stories going from one community to another one about these miracle men. Not Christ yet, miracle men. All of a sudden, we see by the end of the 3rd century that early communities are daring and they're willing to show out public their belief. And this is the earliest proof that we have so far in the world of archaeology in Israel to the existence of the acknowledgement of Christ as Christ, before Christianity is allowed yet. And that's in Megiddo. Should I start reading Revelations right now? I guess you know it, right? You're familiar with it. I want to jump forward because this is just some beautiful stuff that needs to be proven, and I want to just take you to Pastor, that's for the next time you're in Israel. I'm going to take you to Har Karkom. That's biblical Mount Sinai, according to a very famous professor. But that's not my deal for right now. I want to show you something else to finish our story right now. Look at these guys. I would ask you this beautiful building, which is a very impressive church, how old is it? How old is this church, guys? Friends, ladies and gentlemen, how old? The building, how old is it? 30? Wow, that's old. Well, some places I've been to, wandering around the world and asking this in this presentation, and I was told, wow, Shahar, this church is 150 years old, 200 years old. I'm daring you, my friends, bring the Gospels with you, as we will be meeting in the Holy Land walked by Jesus, which is called Israel. And I'll take you to the earliest churches one can actually walk in today that existed. These are churches in the Negev desert. That's the desert walked by the children of Israel. These are the first churches to be built in the Roman cities next to the time when Constantine the Great declares Christianity as main religion. What happens is they tear down the pagan temples and they build churches instead of them. You're looking at churches including baptisteriums. Look at this beautiful stuff. People actually baptized in that baptisterium. This one is for children, babies. This one is for adults. Because you have to walk into the baptisterium as you're a big grown-up man. These beautiful apps, which you see here in Shivta, that I wrote down for you in Avdat, and these places, my friends, these are churches that are 1,600 years old. 1,600. Talking about early Christian communities, my friend, if you really want to come and meet your past, this is where you do it. This is when you understand what did the early Christians in the land of Israel did when they wanted to pray. There's one by the, it's a cross, and the other one is just like a small sink, which basically served for, keeping the babies. In the ancient times, my friends, they actually baptized them, not just dropped them, drops of water. Actually baptizing, because the Jewish way was very much accepted. I remind you that John the Baptist, when he baptizes Jesus, they do a very Jewish thing. This is baptizing. Every Jewish would go to a mikveh all the time. Mikveh, ritual bath, is something that everybody did all the time, especially in times of holidays. So the original way, by the way, was without clothes, completely naked. You need to remember that. It was completely naked because one can actually baptize only when he's naked in the Jewish way. Christian way today is a bit different, but it was based upon that. So what you've seen right now are ancient baths that was used by the people. By the way, again, that's the entrance of the church in a Negev desert city. It is next to the water system. Why? Because everybody walking in the desert, the first thing he needs to do when he encounters the city is drink water. So he was offered the greatness and the mercy of the church if he's interested. And therefore, they could easily show him what the church offers, as it was very close to the water, which were free for everyone. By the church only. Elsewhere it was sold. Next to the church, the water was free. The one that I just showed right now, Shivta and Avdat, these are ancient Nabatean. Nabateans are the tribe of merchants crossing the desert with camels. The Nabatean cities of the Negev desert. Today you'll have to drive about 45 minutes south of biblical Beersheba. It is in the desert today, completely in the desert. Water are being collected in rain drops, in water systems. They have not enough rainfall there. So they have actually to collect the water. These churches specifically, early 50s until late 90s. Okay? By the way, they still excavate right now in Avdat. Right now it's 2013 because if you are to go, look, guys, we have 37,000 archaeological sites in Israel. Registered in the Ministry of Antiquities. 37,000. If you are to enhance your question, ma'am, ask me this, please. How much is excavated from the whole area in Israel? You want to ask me?
Sure, how much?
Thank you. 6%. 6%. Every pillar you want to put down to build a new building in Israel actually goes into an old building. Every pipeline, everything. You can't even put a house. You can't even plow your field without plowing someone else's field from the biblical times. Therefore, about 6%, 6.5% from the whole amount of sites together, from the 37,000, is actually open to our eyes to see. The rest, by the way, is not going to be excavated because it's huge amounts of money. We only excavate when we can and where we are really interested in getting new answers for new questions. But one should know that the days you're still using today, the names, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, these are Roman holidays. Implanted, should I say, embedded into our culture today from the Roman pagans through Constantine the Great. I don't want to go too deep into it, but you should know that the mixture has created a new thing. Not exactly as Jesus preached. Because I want to tell you this, my friends, if I may finish up. As a Jew, as a proud Zionist Jew today, which have huge amounts of Christian friends, I cannot deny even one of Jesus' teachings. Not only can I not deny it, I worship it very much. I admire it because all of his teachings are our flesh and blood today. Our flesh and blood. Ami's, Chaim's, and mine as well. So, what I'm saying here, to answer you and to fulfill the understanding here, we need to remember that his preachings and his teachings are not exactly what happened in Constantine's time, and that's without going into theology of the Catholic and the Orthodox world right now, because I wish no harm to no one, of course. But as I teach that stuff, as I read that stuff, it's a bit different, especially than what you believe in this church today, which is way closer to the origin of what happened in the 1st century AD. Okay? Way closer to what basically preached. Unless you would talk in Hebrew, everything would be almost perfect. Okay? If you just... Next time, my friend, please, the preaching has to be in Hebrew. And parts of it are being excavated right now, and yet are not open to the public. Shh, I have the keys. Okay? Because of where I work, I have the keys. So when you are there, I need to know. I have the keys for each and every one of those gates, which we're excavating right now. Greek was back then the language of the high society, and when you wanted to write something down to be understood, not only among Jews, it had to be in Greek. For instance, all important books were written in Greek because they wanted others to follow. If you are to write today a letter in the internet, which is going to be published, it should be in English, because it's like the world's language as it comes to certain levels, English, okay? You used to call it la lingua franca, which was back then French of the ancient world around the Mediterranean that everybody spoke. So, in the ancient biblical times, Akkadic language served for 1,000 years, as the Greek served afterwards. The Greek was written for 700 years, from beginning of 4th century BCE all the way to the end of 3rd century AD. It served as basically the written language. So even Jews at that ancient times, if they wanted to be educated people, needed to study Greek. Greek is today's our true origin because we don't have any of the Gospels in Aramaic anymore. We are very much certain that there used to be some of the Gospels in Aramaic, such as later Gospels found in Egypt in the 50s. Don't know if you know that, but in the mid-50s, last century, they found in Egypt a treasure of ancient Gospels, which were demeaned by the church of Constantine the Great. It's a whole different... You need to come to a semester, my dear lady, okay? It would take me a semester to explain that right now, but there are much more Gospels which the world doesn't really know about, because we have been taught that what happened in Constantine is the only one. That's not very much true. If I want to go back to Jesus' times, I need these Gospels as well. Some of them are in Aramaic, left almost no evidence whatsoever. Most of what we have is in Greek. We have an Assyrian whole congregation, which, by the way, today lives in Syria and Turkey. They speak the Assyrian language and they pray in Aramaic. But their Bibles were first written in the 3rd century AD. Okay? And they were translated from the Greek to Aramaic. So their Aramaic is not the first ancient ones. We need to remember that. That's the Assyrian. You have, by the way, in the States and Canada, you have Assyrian church members. Their whole congregation of Assyrian church. It's a small one that lives today mainly in Syria and in Turkey. And they speak Aramaic still. They still do the congregations, and the whole preaching and ceremony takes place in Aramaic. So it's not going to be an easy answer, sir, because if you are to read the Bible, then basically it's Hebrew. It's Hebrew, and then Tower of Babylon would take all the languages in the world, and then men would be spread all around the world with different languages. Until that time, everybody spoke one language. It surely hasn't been English. English doesn't exist that long. Language, by the way, Greek has adapted its alphabetic scriptures from the Hebrew 3,000 years ago. Okay, we have Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled. They have Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, etc. Our alphabet is basically the one that serves today the Greek language for about 3,000 years by now. It has adapted the writings as it had no writing. No, it's complete. We are a Semitic language, and the Greek is a Hindu-European language. Totally different. But they have adapted the writings, as before that, it was only a spoken language. In the time of Homer, when the Iliada and the Odyssey was basically spoken, it was only talked about. They didn't write anything until the 10th century BCE. Okay, they never wrote anything until then. This is what I'm doing for the past hour and a half, and I really, really, really do encourage them to do so, but I will say only this, my friends. It's like taking an ancient computer, okay? 30 years ago, we had, if you remember, Commodore 64. Remember that? Okay? Now, it had the amount of pixels it had is about 100. About 100 pixels per screen. And this is trying to read the Gospels, my friend, in 100 pixels per scene, because this is what it is. The computer had back then 64K. Remember that? 30 years ago. I remember that in the year 83, 84. That was even before the Apple IIe and the Apple IIc, which were, back then, I remember, from the garage of Steve Jobs. So, reading the Bible, dear lady, would make you this. You would come to the same chapter and the same site after being in Israel and reading the Bible. All of a sudden, the resolution would come out to 1 million per millimeter. It would become vivid all of a sudden. If you are to try and run my presentation, my PowerPoint presentation right now, upon one of those Commodore 64s, you would raise a white flag and say, "Excuse me, I was not born for that." Okay? He would simply be embarrassed. This is meant to be delivered upon either Macs or PCs for today. This is how I would define it. Your resolution of the world will become so vivid and so well understood that you will never, ever read the Bible as blind people. You'll actually open up your eyes to a fully different understanding of the Bible, with the truth of the archaeology comes out of the ground and proving you the right of the Gospels. Every Gospel you read is going to be more vivid. That's the healthiest place upon earth to take suntan, to Actually, not only bathe, but actually get some suntan. Healthiest upon earth, because you're the best protected from the sun, because it's the deepest point on earth. 427.5 meters below sea level today.
Well, I just want to say we're privileged to have these men and ladies here with us tonight. And can anyone say amen to that? And now, we have a few things they can view up here. And do you want to explain the viewing process for them? Or
Yeah, just be very much true. Friends, I could not step back in Israel without any of these. Okay? Please help me out. Okay? If I'm back without any of these, I'm in a huge trouble.
He's going to share with you what we have. Go ahead and just share some of the things that are up here.
Okay, so from friends, what I brought with me here, these are ancient bronze coins from the Great Revolt against the Romans, which are saying to the freedom of Jerusalem. Okay, when Jews minted coins during the years 66 to 69 in the Great Revolt, what they have prayed in the Galilee, what they've prayed for in the southern parts of the Negev, in the far parts of every part of Israel, was for one thing, for the rebuilding of Jerusalem. So every coin minted during that revolt says to the freedom of Jerusalem, and then it says year 1 to the Great Revolt. Year 2, year 3, year 4, that's it. And then the year 70, if you remember, 70 AD, no more. There's a Hasmonean arrowhead, which you'll be able to see. This one is a baby, only 2,160 years old. Okay? It's not as old as the other one I showed you before. And this beautiful thing here, and you'll be able to come and see, this is a Jewish lantern of the ancient times, which is an oil lamp. Lamp made of oil, basically containing oil, olive oil inside. And this was lighting up the houses. They had no electricity as you do today. This was basically lighting up ancient houses in the ancient times. This is 2,000 years old. Again, should I say, times of Jesus. Okay, times of Jesus, 2,000 years old. There's the half a shekel coin. There's the Babylonian arrowhead. And there's one more thing that I brought with me here. I didn't think I'm going to get to it. We recently uncovered an amazing imprint. That's an impression, friends. This one is not the original. I brought a replica because there's only one of these in all of Israel today. It was found in the new excavation under Temple Mount. Not under, but next to Temple Mount, because nobody digs under. Next to the Western Wall. And it says here in Aramaic, Dakal Leya, which means pure for the Lord. Actually, this is like a rabbinic system that proves that whatever goes to the mountain is pure. Every merchandise, everything went into the temple had to be authorized by the kosher system. As you have kosher food today, you're actually looking at a proof from the times of Jesus. Again, Aramaic, 1st century AD. In Aramaic, Dakal Leya, which is pure for the Lord. So that was also brought with me here. That's it. I rest my case.
Well, this has been an absolutely wonderful night. I believe there's food out there. If we can have the house lights turned on, you are free to come up and have a look at all of this. I just want to say, and can we give a very big applause to all those who have joined us tonight? And what a privilege it's been.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to say anything else in closing?
No, just proud to be here, and thank you. Really, it's a privilege, my friends. I know you think that I flew, 6,500 miles, whatever. It's my privilege, not yours. You should understand that I'm here for you, and it gives me pride to go back to Israel and explain that I talk to huge amounts of Christian people who are supporting Israel on a daily basis, and the great job that is being done by my friends from the Ministry of Tourism, which I'm being hosted by the Ministry of Tourism here, gives me a huge pride when I go back to my students in university and share this love that I see all around the Americas, North Americas together. So it's my pleasure. I hope it's yours as well. It's mutual, but thank you very much for the privilege.
It's been just a privilege for us to be here tonight, and we are so thankful for the evening that we've had. I just do want to say one more thing to Mr. Chaim Guten, who's here, who's from in charge of North and South America for tourism for Israel. We just are so privileged to have you here, sir, and the staff of the Israeli government office here in Canada as well. we are so privileged as a church to have these friends here from Israel. Can anyone say amen to that one more time? And God bless you tonight when we pray the Lord's richest blessing on all those that are here from our church and all those that are here from Israel. And I pray you just have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.